Meanwhile, the other big story of the day, explosive development in the Rafale case, where Times Now has accessed a series of documents. In fact, a Mediapart report that shows that kickbacks were paid to a middleman in India by Dassault Aviation. But this happened in the UPA years. Interesting, isn't it? Because in the lead up to 2019, the entire Rafale deal was shown as a scam by the Congress. They coined the Chaukidar Chor Hai allegation. But now it seems that the kickbacks were actually paid between 2007 and 2013. All right, joining us now is Yann Philippin. He is the correspondent at Mediapart who has brought out this explosive report. Yann, thanks very much for speaking to us here on Times Now. I want to start by asking you about the documents that you have accessed. And let's cut right to the chase, as it were. The first thing that you have put out is an invoice sent by the company Interstellar to the company Interdev to get hold of the money paid by Dassault for middleman Sushen Gupta. This invoice that you have put out, what can we deduce from this particular invoice? Was Sushen Gupta the recipient of kickbacks from Dassault?
Yes, indeed, he has been the recipient of kickbacks. Because, you know, I published this invoice facsimile, I mean in full. But there are other invoices, and there are also bank records from this shell company Interstellar in Mauritius that have been obtained by the CBI. So yes, this is one of the invoices proving that indeed Mr. Gupta received in total 7.5 million euros from Dassault through a first shell company in Singapore, and then would channel the money to the second shell company in Mauritius. And again, this is not only one invoice, there are several invoices which are supported by the bank records, the full bank records of the company Interstellar that have been provided to the CBI by the authorities of Mauritius.
So Yann, you are in possession of documents in the excess of 10,000 pages. Through those, can you tell us what was the modus operandi? This happened prior to 2013, in the years between 2007 and 2013. How was this entire money routed from Dassault to this middleman Sushen Gupta? What was the modus operandi?
In fact, there's been two routes, which has been exactly the same scheme and the same shell companies as the ones that Mr. Gupta used to receive commissions from AgustaWestland, you know, in the famous helicopters deal. So this was the following. First, Dassault purchased overpriced IT contracts to an Indian IT company called IDS. And then IDS had, as per contract, to give 40% of the amounts to Interstellar, the shell company of Mr. Gupta in Mauritius. Then there's been a second route, which was that Dassault purchased the same inflated IT services to Interdev, which is a shell company based in Singapore. And then Interdev paid a little bit of money to IDS in India for the real IT work, you know, that was performed for Dassault. And the vast majority of the money was channeled to Interstellar in Mauritius.
How can we deduce that this was indeed for the Rafale deal? That Dassault paid out this money to Gupta for securing the Rafale deal?
It's because it's written in the contracts, because, you know, there's been contracts signed between first IDS and Interstellar, and then between Interdev and Interstellar, and the CBI obtained these contracts too. And these contracts and also the invoices are very clear about the fact that this is the money ultimately coming from Dassault.
Now, as you would imagine, this has become very, very explosive and political here in India, especially since the entire transaction has happened between 2007 to 2013. Now, the UPA is being accused of presiding over this kickback while negotiating such a critical deal. What would you say about that? Is that a justified allegation?
We must be very cautious, because I have proof, and CBI has proof, that the middleman, Mr. Gupta, received this money. But I don't know precisely what is done with this money. All that we have to support this allegation is another document dated September 2012 that we already revealed at Mediapart in a previous investigation. This is a note that Mr. Gupta wrote for Dassault, and in this note he writes, people in office, sitting in office, are asking for money. But of course, we don't know who these people are. So that's the first point, is that now it's up to the justice system. You know that there's a probe ongoing in France to determine whether these kickbacks have been paid to Indian politicians or not. The second thing I would like to say about this is that this is, of course, a highly political case, but this is not the case of one party.
Can I just interrupt you for a second, just to press you further on that note from 2012, when he says that people in office are asking for the money? What could that possibly be referring to? To the people who are in government, to people who are in another company? What is your reading of that?
I don't know. You know, as you are, I am a reporter, so I don't want to speculate about things I cannot prove. All that we can say is that it seems to be a reference to powerful people, sitting in office. But, I don't want to make a speculation. I prefer to focus on the facts. So this is a fact. And after that, who are these people? I'm afraid, but I'm sorry to say, but I don't know precisely. But
considering that this was such an important deal taking place between the two countries, between Dassault and the Indian government, could all of this have happened without someone who is quite powerful being in the know?
Again, I'm very sorry I can't answer this question. Again, I only say what I can prove.
Could you tell us about what are the linkages of Sushen Gupta? How did he play a role in this entire deal coming through, or at least he tried to play a role?
What we know is that Sushen Gupta is a very influential man. He's reputed as having strong networks, influence networks, both political and inside the Indian army, and especially the Indian Air Force. His family has been defense and aerospace intermediaries for several generations. And it's not very clear what exactly it did during the UPA Congress era, I mean during the tender that has been won by Dassault in 2012. But we revealed other documents from the second period, which is what happened, the final contract that has been negotiated under Modi government. And during this period, we obtained documents showing that Mr. Gupta obtained confidential documents from the Ministry of Defense regarding the precise activity of the Indian negotiators of the Rafale deal. And especially Mr. Gupta managed to obtain very sensitive documents about how the Indian negotiators were calculating the price of the aircraft. And in such an expensive deal of 7 billion euros, of course, information of the price is very, very important during a negotiation. And so we know that during this period, he managed to obtain very sensitive documents from the Indian Ministry of Defense.
Earlier, when you were reporting on the entire deal, ahead of 2019, this had become a very big political issue. In fact, it became an election issue here in India, where the BJP was under attack. Now, with your latest evidence, it seems that the shoe is on the other foot. The UPA is under a cloud.
The answer is both, because that's very important in this deal, is that, of course, it is a highly political case, but it is not the case of one party, because, we've been publishing many reports about this deal, and as I've told you, there are two phases. First one, the tender under UPA Congress until 2012, and then 2014-16, the final contract, and with the tender being cancelled by Mr. Modi and replaced by an intergovernmental contract. And we published many documents showing that there are problematic facts during the two periods, both under UPA and both under BJP. And so it's pointless to say that it's one party or the other. And that's what's really interesting in this case, is that there are problematic stuff happening under the two governments.
What is also interesting is that today we had the BJP say that because of a suspicion or because of fears that corruption like this could be taking place, that's the reason that they eventually decided to go in for a government-to-government contract rather than the kind of negotiation that had been carried out by the previous government. What do you say to that?
I don't think it's a very relevant argument because, these negotiations are fairly similar, because when Dassault won the tender back in 2012, there's been already a one-to-one negotiation because the tender had been won by Dassault, but Dassault and the government still had to negotiate the final contract. So it didn't succeed. But it's been the similar negotiation than the one that BJP started again in 2015 when they changed the rules. And the second thing that we should say is, why didn't CBI investigate? Because what's also a major revelation from our latest report today is that the CBI obtained these documents showing offshore commissions during UPA era on the 11th of October of 2018. And just 1 week earlier, there had been a complaint filed about allegation happening under the BJP government. So basically, at just 1 week time, the CBI received allegation regarding both periods. So why hasn't there been any investigation opened by the CBI? That's the real question.
All right, so questions posed to both the parties. The UPA, which is now being asked, was it completely oblivious to what was happening when it comes to the Rafale deal between 2007 and 2013, and to the NDA about what they have done with the information that they had since 2018 about this corruption that has taken place? Thank you very much, Yann, for having joined us and given us the full picture.
Thanks for your invitation.